I'm 72 years old, and I can hear my own voice in this room even when I'm not speaking. It's a strange thing to realize you've spent most of your life filling silence, and now the silence is what fills you. I'm not telling you this because I want forgiveness, or because I think my story is special. I'm telling it because I don't have many years left to pretend I don't know what I know. Most mornings, I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that goes cold. The window over the sink looks out onto a patch of yard I used to mow like it mattered. I watch the birds and I listen to the refrigerator click on and off. There's no one across from me anymore. Not really. Sometimes my daughter calls, sometimes she doesn't. I don't blame her. I've earned a lot of quiet. People assume old age comes with wisdom, like it's delivered in the mail when you turn 70. The truth is you just get more time alone with the things you said and did. You replay them like old tapes, and you notice parts you didn't hear the first time. When I was younger, I thought being the one who talked meant being the one who cared. I thought I was leading conversations, keeping things moving, making sure nobody got stuck in their feelings too long. I honestly believed I was being helpful. I was wrong in the way a person can be wrong for decades without noticing. I grew up in a house where whoever spoke the loudest won. My father wasn't cruel, not in the way people imagine. He just didn't have time for softness. He worked at the plant, came home tired, ate fast, and wanted the house quiet. If you had a problem, you fixed it or you swallowed it. My mother learned to read his mood by the sound of his boots on the porch. I learned early that if you wanted to be seen, you had to talk. You had to explain yourself fast. You had to get your point across before someone changed the subject. So I carried that into adulthood like a tool. Like a hammer. And I used it on everything, even things that weren't nails. In my 20s I got a job in sales. It suited me. I could talk to anybody. I could turn a stranger into a handshake. I could fill a room with energy, make people laugh, steer a conversation away from awkward pauses. My boss liked me because I could close deals, and my coworkers liked me because I could tell stories. There was always a story. When I met my wife, Diane, I talked the whole first date. That's the honest truth. We sat in a little diner with cracked vinyl booths, and I told her about my job, my plans, my opinions on everything from politics to the best way to cook eggs. She smiled and nodded and asked questions that let me keep going. I thought that meant she was impressed. It didn't occur to me that she was just kind. That she was letting me be who I was, because she liked me. She had a softer way about her. She would tilt her head when she listened, like she was making room for what you said. I didn't understand what a gift that was. We married when I was 27. We bought a small house with a narrow hallway and a living room that always smelled faintly of the carpet cleaner we used on Saturdays. I worked long hours. I came home hungry, tired, full of stories. And I'd unload them on her. I'd talk about the guys at work, about customers, about what the boss said, about what I thought we should do with the yard, with the budget, with the future. I'd talk while I took off my tie. I'd talk while I washed my hands. I'd talk through dinner, cutting my meat and explaining the world like it needed my narration. Sometimes Diane would start to say something and I'd jump in, not to shut her down, not on purpose. I'd say, "Yeah, I know, and that reminds me," and off I'd go. I thought we were having a conversation. But looking back, it was mostly my voice, circling the same center. We had 2 kids. A son first, then a daughter 3 years later. The house got louder, messier, more alive. Diane did most of the quiet work. The lunches. The doctor appointments. The permission slips. The little worries that come with raising people. I did what I thought a good father did. I provided. I fixed things. I gave advice. I made speeches. If my son came home upset, I'd say, "Here's what you do." If my daughter was sad, I'd say, "You'll be fine, you just have to toughen up." I didn't mean to be cold. I meant to be steady. I meant to give them something solid. But I wasn't hearing them. I was hearing my own need to be the one with answers. There were small moments I can picture clear as day. My daughter, maybe 12, sitting at the edge of the couch with her hands tucked into her sleeves. She said, "Dad, can I tell you something?" And I said, "Sure," but I kept my eyes on the television. I remember that. I remember the glow on her face, the way she waited. And then I started talking about something else, because I thought I was lightening the mood. I thought I was keeping things easy. She never told me what she wanted to tell me. Not then. Or my wife, standing at the sink, looking out the window like she was somewhere else. She said, quietly, "I don't think I'm happy." And I laughed. Not a cruel laugh. A nervous one. Like, come on, that's not true, and I started listing all the reasons she should be happy. The house, the kids, the vacations we managed once every couple years, the stability. I talked like I was presenting a case. She didn't argue. She just nodded, because that's what she did when I talked too much. She let the conversation pass over her like weather. The cost of that wasn't immediate. That's the thing people don't understand about slow damage. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It arrives like dust. A little at a time, settling on everything until you look up one day and realize the room is dimmer than you remember. Diane stopped bringing me things that mattered to her. She still told me practical things. Groceries, bills, appointments. But the softer parts of her life went somewhere else. Maybe into her own head. Maybe into a friend's ear. Maybe nowhere. I don't know. The kids learned early that if they came to me, they'd get a lecture. Not always a mean one. Sometimes even a funny one. But it would be my words, my framing, my solution. Not their feelings. So they went to their mother. They went to each other. They went to their rooms. I didn't notice, because I was busy, and because I liked the sound of myself. I liked being needed for my opinion. I mistook that for connection. In my 40s, I got promoted. More responsibility, more travel, more meetings. I'd come home and tell Diane about airports and hotel rooms and the way the company was changing. I'd talk about pressure and numbers and the new guy who didn't know what he was doing. I'd talk like I was keeping her included, but really I was just emptying my head. Sometimes she'd ask, "How are you, really?" and I'd answer with more details, more facts, more stories. I didn't know how to stop and just say, "I'm scared." Or, "I feel lonely." Or, "I miss you." I didn't know how to ask her those questions either. Not in a way that left room for her answer. The turning point wasn't dramatic. It was hospital lighting and quiet footsteps. Diane got sick in her late 60s. It started as fatigue. Then appointments. Then words we didn't want to learn. I remember sitting in a doctor's office with a pamphlet in my hand, trying to understand how a life can change because of cells you can't see. At home, she got smaller. Not just physically. Her world narrowed. She slept more. She ate less. She would sit in the recliner with a blanket over her knees and stare at the muted television. And this is hard to admit, I kept talking. I talked to cover my fear. I talked because silence felt like admitting what was coming. I'd tell her about the weather, about news, about what the neighbor was doing with his fence. I'd talk like if I kept the ordinary going, the extraordinary couldn't happen. One afternoon, near the end, she asked me to sit close. Her voice was thin, like paper. She said, "Please, just sit." So I sat. And after a minute, I started to speak, and she put her hand on my wrist. Not angry. Just tired. She looked at me and said, "I'm so tired of words." That sentence hit me harder than any diagnosis. Because it wasn't about the sickness. It was about us. I sat there and finally shut up. I listened to the sound of her breathing, to the clock in the hallway, to the house settling. And I realized I didn't know her inner life the way a husband should. I knew her routines. I knew her preferences. But I didn't know what she'd carried quietly all those years while I filled the air. She died in March. It was raining that week. I remember because the gutters overflowed and I didn't fix them. I didn't care. After the funeral, people came over with casseroles and kind faces, and I talked. Of course I did. I thanked them. I told stories about Diane. I made them laugh once or twice, and everyone seemed relieved, like I was handling it. Then they went home. And I was left with a quiet that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a verdict. In the months after, I tried calling my kids more. I'd ask how they were, but the old habits came back fast. If my son mentioned work stress, I'd launch into advice. If my daughter mentioned her marriage, I'd start analyzing. I could hear myself doing it, and still I couldn't stop. Like a man reaching for a railing that isn't there. One day my daughter said, very calmly, "Dad, I don't need a solution. I just need you to listen." She didn't shout. She didn't cry. That made it worse. It meant she'd been practicing that sentence in her head for years, waiting for a moment when she had the energy to say it. I didn't know what to say back. So I said I was sorry. And I meant it. But sorry doesn't give you your time back. Sorry doesn't put you at the edge of the couch again when your kid is 12 and wants to tell you something, and you actually turn off the television. That's what can't be fixed. I can't go back and sit at the table with Diane and ask her, slowly, "What are you thinking about?" and then keep my mouth shut long enough to hear the answer. I can't give my son a father who says, "That sounds hard," instead of, "Here's what you do." I can't undo the way my family learned to keep things from me because they didn't want the speech that came afterward. I've had moments lately when I realize I might not be remembered the way I assumed I would be. Not as a villain. Just as a presence that took up a lot of space. A man who talked and left less room for other people to exist out loud. If you're listening to me, and you're younger than I am, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I don't know your life. I don't know your family. I don't know the weight you carry. I only know what it feels like to sit in a quiet kitchen at 72 and realize you spent your best years explaining yourself instead of understanding the people you loved. Listening is not a technique. It's not a trick. It's a kind of respect. It's saying, without words, "I'm here with you." I didn't do enough of that. I thought love was built out of providing and protecting and making sure everyone had the right answer. Sometimes love is just being quiet and letting someone be messy in front of you. If this meant something to you, if it landed anywhere tender, you can leave a thought in the comments. Not for me to feel important. Just so you know you're not the only one thinking about time. I don't have a grand ending for this. My days are simpler now. I still talk too much sometimes. Old habits don't die cleanly. But some evenings, when my daughter calls, I put the phone on speaker and I sit down. I let her speak. I let there be pauses. I don't rush to fill them. I listen for the feeling under the words, the thing she's actually trying to say. And after we hang up, I sit in the quiet and I miss Diane in a way that has no cure. I miss the chances I didn't take. I miss the conversations I interrupted before they began. There's a mercy in finally seeing the truth, even late. It doesn't fix anything. It just changes the way you spend what's left. I'm 72. The coffee still goes cold. The house still clicks and settles. And I'm learning, at the end, to let silence be what it is, space I should have offered a long time ago.